Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today, I am very excited to talk about something that I have been thinking about inside of Notion, and that is what I've been calling visual cohesiveness. As I've been using Notion over the years, I've come across tips and tricks which have helped me to develop better systems within the application. So this may turn into a little series where I share these practices in a way that you can hopefully understand them and that you can put into practice within your own workspace if you find them helpful. So, visual cohesiveness. What exactly do I mean by this? Well, with great power comes great responsibility. And in an application like Notion, we are given a blank canvas where we can create a digital workspace that suits us, that suits our needs. But with this power and with all of these possibilities, with all of these options, it can get difficult in terms of ensuring that all of these moving parts of the workspace actually work together and are united to work together effectively. And that's what I want to talk about today. So now that you have a better understanding of what I mean by visual cohesiveness, let's dive into the first strategy, which is to keep a tidy workspace. And I can make an entire video when it comes to this point alone, but just as a clean physical environment is important when it comes to fostering mental clarity and productivity, the same applies to our digital workspaces, right? Keeping a clean space really helps our thoughts and just our overall sense of being. So, well, at least it does to me. I know that there are some people who thrive in having things being all over the place. If that is you, then you do you. But I really think that it is something that really helps. And especially if you're working with clients inside of Notion and you're building a space for them, it definitely helps to have a setup that is clean and organized. Right? So when it comes to this, I instantly think of the sidebar. And the sidebar inside of Notion is split into your favorite section, and you also have a private area. Of course, you have the option to create team spaces, but for now, we're just going to be focusing on a Notion workspace where it is just your own. So this is my personal Notion workspace. And you can see that I have my favorites pretty minimal. And in actuality, if I was not filming this video, it would just have these three: my finance planner, an area for work, as well as my grocery list. But because I'm filming this video, I included these two workspaces in my favorites just for easier navigation and so that I can get to them faster. The main point is having favorited items that you actively use. A lot of time we end up favoriting things, favoriting pages, and after a while we no longer actively use them. So it's good to kind of go back and unfavorite those or move them to a more appropriate area like an archive so that your sidebar remains minimal and it remains clean. So that's the first point when it comes to the sidebar, right? I think another important point is to have these top level areas of your workspace and then have sub pages. So this is usually termed a dashboard inside of Notion. This is a personal dashboard, meaning that it's one page that I can come to that links to all of these nested pages. So in your private section of the sidebar, having just a few really important and frequently used top level pages will be helpful, as opposed to just having all of these things in the sidebar. right? And I also kind of organize this dashboard a bit more by having these toggles for archive. So if I just empty all of them, open all of them right now, you will see that these are actually pages that I don't actively use, but they still come under the heading of each of these categories, these 3 categories that I have here. So using and utilizing toggles is also very helpful to kind of neaten up your workspace. Another thing with the sidebar is that when you download a template, whether you've purchased a template from, let's say, Gumroad or someone's lemon squeezy shop, but you've purchased a template or you've downloaded a free template, it's going to come directly into your sidebar here. And when it comes here, it's very easy for it to remain here and for it to clutter your sidebar. So what I have been doing is dragging the template. So let's say I downloaded a template and it comes here. I drag it directly into this downloads database, which is an idea that I actually got from Jill Metcalf. I will link her Twitter down in the description. But she had a spring cleaning Notion sort of challenge on Discord, and this was sort of the first thing that she described there, and this is a template that she would have had as a free download. And ever since I got that, ever since I did the first part of that challenge, every time I had a downloaded or duplicated template in my sidebar, I would just drag it directly, because usually I'm on this page, usually I'm on my personal homepage. So I will just, or at least I have this as a tab that's open. I would just drag that template directly into this downloads folder right here and this database, and it will, all of them will come up here. So that's another really helpful point. The next strategy that I have is to use icons intentionally. And inside of Notion, you have 3 choices when it comes to the icon set that you want to use. You can use an emoji, you can use Notion's native icon set, and you can use a custom icon where you can upload your own file. But I have really stuck with this set of Notion's icons, and that is because I really like the design of them, and I like that I can customize the entire workspace with color. So I will come back to talking about color in the next point, but in terms of icons, I really do like to stay consistent throughout the workspace, meaning let's say you are building a template for someone or you're building your own template. It's gonna look really strange if I were to change this to, let's say, the book emoji, and let's say I change the bookmark to the bookmark. You will see that it doesn't look bad per se, but it does look a bit out of place. So again, in terms of the theme of cohesiveness, keeping the icons at least in one set is really going to help your workspace look a lot better. So if you prefer using emojis, definitely just use emojis throughout your workspace. And maybe there are some shared pages that you prefer to use the Notion's native icon set. That is completely fine as well. Now, another reason why I really like using the native icons inside of the Notion application is that if I were to go to a database, for example, we do have the option to change the icons for each of these views that I have here. But the icon, if you go to edit the view and to change that icon, you only have the native icons. You can't choose an emoji, and as of right now at least, you can't upload any custom icons. So again, if you are gonna go with a default, or if you would like to go with a default, then I really do think going with the native icons is nice. I do use emojis in different parts of the workspace, but at least for the more top level icons, I think it's nice to just pick one. And if you are going to pick one, at least for the advantage of having the database view icons, the native icons are a good way to go. Speaking of databases and their views and icons, I have another point when it comes to icons in general. Right, so this is a template that I built for a fictional book club. I'm going to hide the sidebar just so that you can have a look at these icons here. So while I do think that having the ability to choose our own icons for each of these database views is very helpful, I don't think it's always necessary, right? And sometimes it can actually not be helpful. What I mean is that if I had changed these icons with using a custom icon, then I would not easily know what type of view that each of these are. And this isn't necessarily a huge thing, but it becomes very important, especially I'm going to use the example of the property icons. So inside of Notion, we can also change the property icons right up here to anything that we want from Notion's native icons. Right, so I've just changed this discussion thread icon. Before, I knew that this was a relation property, right? However, right now, I don't really know what type of property it is at all. It can be a relation, it could be a select or a multi-select, it could be a text property. The point that I'm essentially trying to make is that especially if you are building Notion templates frequently, let's say you are a template creator, or even if you are just the Notion person inside of your company, it might be helpful to leave these property icons as their default options, as they do serve as a helpful indicator telling you the type of property that it is. Otherwise, I do like customizing these icon properties, but again, it's something that you want to ensure that you do have a functional workspace or functional template before you get into the customization of these things. And when you do customize, ensure that it is at least helping. Yes, aesthetics is good and it's nice, but if it's causing you or whomever is going to be using the template more problems than is necessary, then I think that the default icons really serve the purpose and they are fine as well. So that is what I have to say regarding icons. The last icon point that I will make, it is something that you may be familiar with already if we are friends over on Twitter. But that is using icons as a means of communicating progress or showing progress on a project. So let's say I'm going to go ahead and just put sample project here. And let's say we have 4 projects. Or we have 4 different phases that we want to track with this project. So phase 3 and phase 4. I'm just going to turn this into columns, and once they are columns, I'm gonna just turn them into pages as well. Page. Right, and I'm going to turn this into a heading 3. Right, so let's say that I want to put icons to these, and I want them to show progress over the phase or over the course of the project. So I can simply go to, and this is using Notion's own native icons. I can type in the number 1 or whichever phase of the project it is. and you will see these icons come up, and they are showing 1 out of a certain number. So this is 1 out of 3, this is 1 out of 4, 5, 6, this is just a die, and this one is showing 1 out of 8. So for this project, I know there are 4 phases, so I'm going to go ahead with this square. I can give it any color that I want, and I can continue on going to icons, typing 2, and this will be phase 2, this will be phase 3, and phase 4 will just be a completed square. And just like that, you can have your objectives inside of each of these. But if you are inside of one of these phases, you don't have to necessarily even title this phase 1. You can title it whatever it is with respect to that project. But you can use icons in this way, and I have found it extremely helpful in multiple areas of my workspaces and workspaces that I build for other people as well. All right, so we have spoken about keeping a tidy space. We just spoke about icons. Now I want to dive a bit deeper into color, right? And specifically how we can use color as a means of communication in our workspace. One example of this is in my personal finance planner. You can see here that each subscription has a yellow icon. That means that wherever I am and I see this icon, which is yellow, I know that it's a subscription. It doesn't have to be labeled. I don't have to add another text property so that I can have subscriptions with a colon. I know just based on the icon. And it's nice because you can set icons as defaults inside of your templates. But let me show you another example where I really utilized color as a means of communication. So this is a fictional workspace that I built for No Code Weekend. It is a non-government organization workspace, right? And if I scroll down to this main menu area, you can see that I have these pages and databases grouped by activity, people, donations, resources. So they are grouped, and each of these groupings have a color assigned to them. So for example, programs and services, you can see that it has this purple icon with people sort of around a table. So if I go into the staff area, and staff has this blue icon assigned to it, I can see a database with all members that work at Hope Works. And each of them, I forget that this is fictional sometimes, each of them have a blue icon. But I can also see here that this purple icon, which we had for programs under the activities section, is here. So I already know that Carl is working on the Safe Cycle and that Josanne is working on the family planning program. Without even needing to know that this is an activity, I have the color association in my mind already. And this goes through and is carried out throughout the entire workspace, right? If I go to, let's say, donations and funds, you can see that it's green, and this is a green icon associated here. If I go to the knowledge base, I do have this as a yellow icon, and you can incorporate color, of course, as well with your headings. So this is a heading that has a background of yellow. And again, it really just brings that cohesiveness within the entire workspace, right? And I'm sure it's here for volunteers as well, even down to the table of contents, right? So this is blue. All of the volunteer resources is blue as well. And you can see more documents that also have a blue icon, which is signifying to whomever is looking here that this is a person, or this is under the people category. So that's another way that you can really use color inside of Notion to communicate a particular group. You can also use color, and I've even colored this purple, so you can change the color of these progress bars inside of Notion as well. The last place that I find it helpful to use color as a means of communication is when you have a status property, or in this case, a select property that is communicating a particular status. So for this, I can see that I have green as active, planning as yellow, orange is on hold, and closed is red. So this is kind of a traffic light sort of system in that you are communicating the phase of the project with the color as well, as opposed to just having these as all sorts of different colors. So that's just another way that this can work. Next, I want to look at page structure. And the structure of our pages can vary, but there are a few elements that can bring consistency throughout the entire workspace. One of which is using dividers consistently. So if you use dividers after each of your or under each of your headings, like I do, it will be good to have that in each of your pages. So you can see that I have it here, I have it in my business area, and I also have it in my archive and in my vault. Another area is using the same sort of headings throughout as well, and being consistent. So if you like using second order headings, then definitely go with those. I prefer the heading 3s throughout. That's just the one that I go to and use the most frequently. But those are two of the main sort of course, if you are a template creator, then having that sort of consistency when it comes to your headings. So for this example, inside of HopeWorks, if you go to programs and services, you will see that I do have headings, and these are pretty consistent throughout. So this is programs and services. I believe this is a header 2. Yeah, that's a second order heading. And if I go back, if I go to volunteers, here you'll see that I also have a second order heading here as well. And this is the type of consistency that I'm talking about, especially if you're building a workspace for someone else. Another element of the page is having a menu bar or a navigation bar at the top, which can help persons to navigate the workspace better. So this menu bar is located on the home page or on the main dashboard, and I can use this to navigate the actual main dashboard. So if I click action board, it's going to lead me to right here. If I click on activities, it's going to lead me to the activities area. And if I'm in the activities area, I can easily get back to, let's say I want to get back to the action board, which is on the home page. I'm simply linking, copying the link to each of these blocks, and and I would have linked them in this quote block and then created a sync block over that. So having those on each of the pages within the workspace, so let's say if I go to donations and I go to grants, you'll see that it's up here. And we also have the consistency in terms of the second order heading. So this is just another strategy that you can use to keep your entire workspace cohesive. The final strategy that I have for you is to know yourself, right? Socrates said, know thyself, and that really applies inside of Notion. Once you continue to use the application, you will kind of develop your own style, and that is going to influence how you build templates. It's going to influence how your own workspace looks. And I think keeping in mind the 4 strategies that I just spoke about will really help things to at least appear more cohesive and to feel more cohesive and then functional as well. So for example, I know for myself, I prefer using dark mode as opposed to light mode. I rarely add covers to my pages just because I find them to be a bit distracting. But lots of people find that covers actually add character to the page, and it helps to convey a certain message. If you have a banner, especially if you're building like a design agency, for example, covers are very nice and helpful. The more you use Notion is the more that you will be able to customize and come up with your own strategies as well when it comes to making your workspace work for you. So that's all that I have to share today. Just a little recap. We spoke about keeping the workspace tidy. We spoke about icons and using them intentionally. We spoke about color, using color within your workspace as a means of communication. We also talked briefly about page structure and how to keep that consistent within your workspace. And lastly, making your workspace your own by using it more frequently and developing your own style. So I really hope that you at least got one helpful tip from this video, or one helpful strategy. And I think that just from creating this video, I definitely would like to dive deeper into each of these sort of strategies, each of the areas. But please comment below and let me know what you think. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video.